Hello everyone, my name is Clancy Ree and I'm the Senior Engagement Coordinator for the University of Wyoming Alumni Association. Today we are going to hear from 3 alumni who work on Capitol Hill. The first is UW alumna Kaite Krell, who is the Correspondence Director for Senator Barrasso. The second is UW alumnus Conroy Stout, who is the Legislative Assistant for Senator Enzi. And last but not least, we'll hear from Rachel Vliem, who is the Press Secretary for Senator Enzi. During this interview, these 3 alumni are going to be sharing what it looks like to work in politics and also some insight and advice for our students and alumni who are looking to get into a similar career path on Capitol Hill. Let's start with you, Kaite. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so hi team, my name is Kaite, and I originally went to the University of Wyoming in 2012 to 2016. I got a bachelor's at UW in both political science and then another bachelor's in Spanish. From then, I moved on and I have been out here working in DC basically ever since. I started in Senator Enzi's office and I am currently the Correspondence Director for Senator Barrasso.
Thank you. Conroy, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hello, my name is Conroy Stout. I am currently a legislative assistant for Senator Enzi. I graduated from the University of Wyoming for the first time with a BA in communication and a BS in political science in 2014. And then I graduated with my master's in communication in 2017, in which I focused on political communication through social and new media. It was a lot of fun going to UW.
I'll ask you more about that comment later. We can talk about that at the end. And Rachel, what about you?
Hi, my name is Rachel Vliem. I'm Senator Enzi's press secretary, and I live in Washington, D.C. I got a degree in journalism with a pre-law minor in 2015.
Can you tell us a little bit about what led you to wanting to pursue a career in politics? And let's start with Kaite again.
Okay. So when I was originally looking at what I wanted to do and be when I grew up, politics wasn't anywhere where I was thinking. I originally thought I was going to be pre-med and pretty early on realized that I had a passion for government and I loved what I was doing there and how that could change things in a different capacity. And so from there, I was then lucky enough to join the political science department. And I had some really amazing professors. Dr. Garner is still there, so is Tina Gabrielson, who I believe is now the head of the department. And so I had amazing professors that helped me and encouraged me the entire way. I was able to get an internship that Dr. Garner supported me with, and I was interning at the state legislature for the first full-time internship that we had with the University of Wyoming in 2015. And afterwards, I came out and interned here in DC, and I realized that this was what I wanted to do, and this is how I enjoyed doing it. It was working for government. It was working for the people back home and trying to get things accomplished that I knew would be important to them. And I thought that I would be a good voice and a good advocate that way. And so it was kind of what drew me in was little bit by little bit, but then I got pulled along.
And Conroy, what about you? Is this what you always knew that you wanted to do?
I would say less politics and more public service. I'm sure there are people from my past who would argue that I've always been into politics, and in fairness, I have been. But the career path that drew me in was public service, and this was one of the more expedient ways in which I felt I could help serve the public and help advance my country to the best possible goals that we had. I think that that's really just how a lot of people end up on Capitol Hill.
And did you know from the time that you were going to school at UW that this is exactly how you wanted to be in public service?
It became a little clearer towards the end. Initially, I actually thought I might end up in academia for a while. And who knows, maybe I'll come back, do the reverse of everyone watching this video and go from working back to school, but you never quite know. Towards the end, and especially after I also interned on Capitol Hill, but I interned in the House of Representatives at the time, I realized that I loved being in Washington, D.C. I loved the city. I loved the vibe that was going on, and I really enjoyed being in the nexus of what a lot of decision-making was happening in our country.
Thank you. And Rachel, what about you? Did you know that this is what you wanted to do from the start?
Definitely not. So I actually landed here in kind of a unique way. I was job hunting after graduation. I thought I wanted to go to law school, so I was looking for something in the legal field. And then I got a LinkedIn message from a stranger working in Senator Barrasso's office asking if I'd be interested in moving to Washington, D.C. And I had never been interested in politics. I'd never even visited D.C., but I took the chance and moved out 2 weeks later, and I really love it.
So this is interesting to think about as well, because we do have a lot of students and alumni that reach out to us specifically about how they should have their LinkedIn formatted. Would you say that yours was pretty up to date and had all of your details on there? And do you think that's kind of what led someone to reach out to you for a job offer like that?
Yeah, so I actually took a class in the journalism department, and it focused very heavily on keeping your LinkedIn page up to date and like how to best message and promote yourself. And I think that class helped me a lot and got me the attention that I needed to get this job. So I would definitely recommend to everyone to keep their LinkedIn always up to date.
Okay, Katie, can you tell us a little bit about what excites you most about your position, and then what is the biggest challenge as well?
So for my position, I'm in charge of all the constituent correspondence for the office. I get to see every piece of mail, phone call, fax, email. Yes, we get lots of faxes that come in and go out of the office under the name of Senator Barrasso. What's really exciting about that and what I really love is how much I get to interact with all different sorts of policies and politics, and I get to see a bunch of different sides. I am primarily a healthcare nerd, and so I like healthcare policy the best. But moving into this position and being the director, I've been able to expand my knowledge and get to know a little bit more about everything. And it's made me more well-rounded in knowing the interests of Wyoming. And then I also get to be hands-on with the boss. I get to sit down with the senator sometimes, and I handle some of his more personal notes that he writes, like takes time to handwrite out to constituents who have reached out with something, make sure that he is getting a phone call out as quickly as it needs to happen, and just to see how he engages with constituents and how we take simple lifestyles and things that happen with us and what's important to folks back home and turn that into policy is one of the things that I really love. And I love getting to see how one person can make a difference, and I make sure that those people get to be heard by the senator. And so that's something that I do take a lot of pride in, even if I don't always love managing the database, because I am the queen of IQ is what we call it, and I get to make sure that we don't have 12 Conroy Stouts sitting in our system who have written in multiple times, because otherwise then it gets confusing and you have to lose addresses. And so the bad side is I have to keep up with data. The good side is I get to help with every constituent that I talk to, and it's really amazing.
Thank you. And Conroy, what about you? If you had to say there's something that was the most exciting about your job, but also the most challenging thing, how would you answer that?
So you actually have a really diverse set of jobs here, and I think maybe a quick primer on that would be super helpful for the people watching this. There are a lot of different areas that help make a senator's office work. Rachel is communication director, and I'm sure she will cover that. Well, she's not a communication director, she's a press secretary, which handles a lot of communication with the senator. I am on the policy side, so I handle a lot more of the issues that come through the office and what the legislation is. I read a lot of the text that comes in, where groups are sitting on various issues, and try to figure out what the best position for Wyoming is in this case, and the nation as a whole, and where positions should be in a policy relative to my senator's previous positions and what their values and Wyoming values are and everything held forward in that. That is super exciting. I spend a lot of my time reading up on really diverse and really, really niche issues. I handle a portfolio that includes small business and banking and broadband and telecommunications, and it's just a broad range of issues that has multitudes of things out there. And if someone finds something they're really interested in, they can be entertained endlessly on Capitol Hill through the policy side, because you can make differences that are positively impactful for future generations kind of coming out. I think the biggest challenge is really trying to navigate all of those paths and find something that's either truly practicable in the world as it is, so what will pass and what can make even incremental better change, or something you have to hold out for a much bigger change, and advise the senator what's going on out in the world and where some of the issues and advocacy groups and people and constituents all really see that issue taking shape.
Thanks, Conroy. And Rachel, what would you say to the same question?
So in my role as press secretary, I write all the news releases, create talking points, talk with reporters, and manage our Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram pages. So I love that every day is different. Like Conroy was talking to, there's just like a diverse range that you do every day. So one day I could be focused on covering a big budget hearing that Senator Enzi's holding, and the next I could be recording a video for an elementary school. So I really like that no day is the same. I think the biggest challenge for me was learning that you don't always agree with your boss 100% on everything. And I struggled with that a bit in the beginning, but I realized, of course you won't, unless it's your name on the door, you know, you're working for your boss. So once I accepted that, it was easy to overcome, but I'd say that was the biggest challenge in the beginning.
That's good advice to hear. And Katie, can you tell us a little bit about the day-to-day that you experience and also what it takes to be successful at your job?
So, like what Rachel said, the day-to-day is never the same, and it's a good thing and a bad thing. Our day-to-day is oftentimes driven by what the senator is doing that day, and that is always different. I can tell you that my day-to-day in the last 7 months has been nothing like my day-to-day was last year. Working from home has been an entirely new challenge, I will have to say, and it was amazing to see the Senate get up and completely distance ready in a span of like 2 weeks. Because before that, nobody in my office really had a laptop except for about 3 people. So it was really interesting to see it that way. But every day we get up and we have to make sure that all of the mail that came in overnight, everything that happened gets sorted, it gets to the right person. We know that everything has been seen by every constituent who's called or written in. After that, we get set about finding the right answers, seeing who needs to tackle things. If the boss was set something personally, a book, a thank you card, I make sure it gets to him, and he will oftentimes be sending me things throughout the day to make sure I get it out the door. That can be anywhere from I help make sure that we get notes out and answers out and correspondence out, but it also means that we're getting all of our flags out and things like that. You'll have meetings a couple times a week. I manage all of the legislative correspondence, and so I'm in charge of all of the people who are doing the digging on finding the answers for the boss if he may not know it off the top of his head, right? You can expect one man to know a lot of things, but to know everything that several 100,000 constituents are writing in about is not very feasible. And so I get to manage all of them, and I will help them with their problems as we go on. Honestly, to be successful, I think the biggest thing is to be adaptable. Learn to be flexible. If you need to drop everything that you're doing, learn what is the plastic plate and what is the glass plate. What can shatter, what can bounce. That was a piece of advice that I was given, and I think it was been the best thing. It's like, I know that I can drop a little bit of research and I can do it later that afternoon, but there might be a letter of recommendation that comes into the office that needs a really fast turnaround, and the boss needs to see that that person gets it out. And so, like, we have to get that up to him, and he has to be like, yes, I will write this letter of recommendation and get it going. And sometimes you have to nudge him. So I think that's what success is, at least in my office, is making sure that you keep your priorities straight, but being flexible enough to do that.
Being adaptable is also just so important. I think that we've all realized in this current time of switching to working from home, and COVID has thrown a lot of challenges at us. But, you know, if it's not COVID, it might be something else. So being adaptable, I think, is something that never goes out of style. Thanks,
Yep.
Katie. Conroy, can you tell us a little bit about what a day in the life of a legislative assistant looks like, and then what you feel like it takes to be successful at your job?
Absolutely. And I'd just like to really echo Katie for a second. It absolutely means that you need to be adaptable in everything, in all of our careers. I think that's there. And one of the other most important things outside of the day in the life of just me, but it is really important in my specific career, is the ability to take complex information and distill it into a usable format or just paraphrase it or summarize it, but be able to take complex ideas and put them in simplistic terms. And so the ability to write briefly or speak briefly, not something I'm succeeding at now, is really important. And that's something you have to help your boss with every day. And it's especially important as legislative assistant. I read, so for instance, I had a section of bill that I really needed to know about today, and it is 70 pages long. And I need to make sure that I can summarize that into something that is not 70 pages long, and preferably not more than 2 or 3 pages, and distill the really important information out from what is a lot of like very superfluous but necessary information for legislation, but not for decision making. And that's a lot of what you do. You read a lot, you summarize a lot, and you write a lot. And you absolutely proofread a lot. For everyone who rolls their eyes every time one of their teachers goes through and marks off all the little red arrows you made on there, I frequently ask Rachel to read through my stuff, and she still finds red arrows no matter how well I proofread. It is worth having someone else take a look at everything you do if you are going to send it further up the chain. I really think that that's the best I can say is read a lot and be able to like have a diverse knowledge set and be open to new ideas, because your idea may not be the best one out there.
That's great advice. Thank you. And Rachel, what do you think in regards to this question?
So my job in press is a little different than Conroy's. Conroy knows a lot about very specific things, and my job is to kind of know a little bit about everything. So, you know, if a news release comes along about an energy issue that I've never heard of, I have 15 minutes to learn about it. But I think that that's part of the job, is being proactive and being willing to learn those new things. And it also takes a lot of organization and research skills. And quickly thinking on your feet about those things. And then one last thing, in all of our jobs, I think we all have to work well in a group, but we also do a lot individually. So it's important to have both of those skills.
Thank you. And can you tell us also just a little bit about what a day in the life of a press secretary looks like? Because it's not often a job I think that many people get to hear about here.
Yeah, of course. So it starts with like reading the, morning clips, all of the news sites. We cultivate clips for Senator Enzi for him to read and, make, say, like 15 pages of clips for him that he reads every morning. So we really do our best to keep him informed on every issue. And then it really depends on what Senator Enzi is doing that day. If he's meeting with a school group, I would tag along and take photos of that. And if he's going to a hearing, I would clip the video and write a quick news release about what he said. And if he's meeting with a constituent group, I would go in, take photos of that as well. And then I also respond to reporter inquiries. So if a reporter calls and says, what's the status of this bill about grizzly bears, then I would talk to them about what's going on with that piece of legislation.
Thank you. And Katie, can you tell us, do you think that UW uniquely prepared you for success in any way? Specifically, were there any classes that you took that were really helpful, internships, connections? Would you look back and do anything differently? I think for anybody watching today who's currently a student or just recently out of school, it's always good to hear what resources really to lean into.
Yeah, UW definitely set me up very well. The best thing that I would say to students now is get involved. I look back and I was very involved in undergrad. I knew both Rachel and Conroy when we were both in undergrad, and we interacted in different clubs or groups or classes. And really that interpersonal connection between everybody is important. When I was moving out to DC, Rachel was the first person I called, and I was like, can I sleep on your couch for the night before I need to move into my new apartment? And so it's knowing those people. And I wouldn't be in DC if I hadn't taken Dr. Andrew Garner's classes. I really love his voting class. I can't think of the name off the top of my head. As soon as I went to say it, it flew out. But it was uniquely helpful. And the other thing is UW, I was able to ask certain professors, I could go in, use those office hours, build those relationships there. I was able to talk Dr. Gardner into doing an independent study when I ran out of like the classes that were specific to what I wanted to do related to policy. You know, I was a giant policy nerd, but I really wanted to know more about statistics. And I can tell you, after just finishing my master's recently, the only reason I did so well in statistics in public health and learning how to use that in epidemiology is because Dr. Gardner did an independent study with me there. And so between that, and Rachel and I were both in a sorority together, and so we were both Chi Omegas, and I was an officer in one of those positions, but I also just learned like putting things on for the community. We would have people come in and raise money for Make-A-Wish. And so, you know, anything like that, learning how to put others first, using ASUW to learn how to get into the weeds about legislation. I worked at the Branding Iron, and I had to get quick facts and copy edit. That was, I was literally an editor there, and that is, again, my job today, is I make sure to edit things. I'll have my LAs come and have me read over their letters before they send them up to the boss to sign. And so it really is all those little things that you don't think are important that really will build on. And I wouldn't be here if I hadn't done that internship between the University of Wyoming and the state legislature. I seriously wouldn't. I had no idea what I was going to do next. I got told like, hey, you should apply for this internship. And then when I was done with that internship and I had a wonderful time, one of the state legislators was talking to me as I was going to leave. And he's like, what are you going to do now? And I was like, I don't know. It's March and I'm done with my semester already. And he's just like, well, my daughter's in DC and she's interning for Senator Enzi right now. And now she works in Senator Enzi's office with Conroy and Rachel. And she was the one who put my name in and gave me over to another UW alum who then became my intern coordinator. And it is all because of the people that I met at UW and the connections that I made and the opportunities and anything. You know, the people I think are the best part of UW because there's institutional knowledge there and there are opportunities that other people are going to know and see that you should get to. And I like to babble, so I will just end there.
No, that was really great to hear because I feel like as we are doing these interviews, we hear over and over again from the Cowboy Network that really just getting to know your fellow cowboys and lean into those relationships and build those relationships opens so many doors that maybe you'd never think would open. But just from really being a part of that has been such a huge deal for so many cowboys and cowgirls that we've talked to. So thank you, Katie. Conroy, what about you? Did UW uniquely set you up for success in any way?
Absolutely, it did. I also was in the political science department, but I was in the communication department for a lot of my time as well. And contrary to what practically every person thinks, public speaking was a fantastic class. I may be a little biased. I helped teach public speaking for a little bit while I was out there, but it does help students, and it helped me kind of like distill information down when I took various communication classes, but especially public speaking. You learn how to put that information down, support what you're saying, and present it really reasonably. And even in DC, you will be expected to speak at least in front of several other people in a room at some point in your life. At a lot of staff meetings, you will be talking in front of very important people, and that experience of public speaking can be really, really helpful. On top of that, the University of Wyoming has a fantastic amount of professors who are just willing to open their time and really dedicate some time to help you if you go into their office hours. And it also has several tutoring programs and other things that are just open and available for students to go at any point. The Oral Communications Center, and then they had, while I was there, just open tutoring hours in the basement of co-library where you could just go if you were having issues with some sort of subject at some time. And they had a tutor there who was going to be willing and have time to help you work through concepts that were sticky for you. And of course, then I attended the job fairs and got help with my resume and all sorts of other things. And while other universities may offer that, you definitely got a much more individualized approach to those things. And I don't know, it just felt like home.
And Rachel, I know that you weren't specifically planning on becoming a press secretary, but would you say that UW set you up for success to be where you are now?
Yeah, I definitely think so. Actually, I remember in my interview for Senator Enzi's office, I was talking to the chief of staff, who's also a UW alum, and we had a professor in common. And I think that kind of helped us make a connection and maybe helped me land the job a little bit. And then when I was in college, I took several internships. I was a photography teaching assistant, I was a research assistant for my advisor, and I was a statistics tutor. And I was honest in my interviews in that I didn't have any experience in politics, but I had a fairly well-rounded background through my internships that I think helped me.
It's good to hear, just that people should get as involved as they can and take advantage of all of those opportunities that you can while you're at UW. Rachel, is there anything you'd say for a young alumni who might be watching, who's recently graduated, in ways that they could pursue similar career path, but they're already outside of school? Is there anything that they could look into that would be helpful for them to know?
Well, number one, I'd say definitely update your LinkedIn, because that's where I got where I am. So that's a good start. And then just be open to any opportunities, even if you don't necessarily think it's your dream job. Like, I never saw myself working in politics, and I took this chance, and now I love it and can't imagine doing anything else. So I think look at every opportunity and take chances.
Thank you. And our last question for this interview will be, if you had any advice to offer, one piece of advice to students or young alumni, what would that be? And Katie, let's start with you.
If we're going with just any piece of advice, I would say keep pursuing those passions and remain flexible. Just like going back to where Rachel said, like, she made a choice to say yes. There are a lot of things that I'm still interested in that don't necessarily reflect on my job. I can tell you that the one summer that I decided to teach myself a little bit of coding, I now use that with the program that we use in the office. It's the little things that you learn in life that you pursue because you're interested that are going to make you, unique, and it's going to give you some skill sets that other people don't have, or it's going to give you connections that you don't have. And so pursue things that you are interested in and truly interested in, and remain flexible to opportunities that maybe you weren't, but might be good to say yes to. I know that if I'd made a plan, if I'd followed through on the very first plan I made in high school, I wouldn't have ended up at UW. I wouldn't have known my best friends, and I wouldn't have made it into the job that I'm at now. And I'm so incredibly grateful for, being flexible and following. Maybe it wasn't what you thought, but it was something that you were interested in, and it might have been the right thing. And so I'm really, really thankful for that. Not in a million years would I have imagined that I was working in DC and that I ended up working here at the Senate. That was never a plan, but here I am, and I wouldn't change it any other way.
And Conroy, if you could leave everyone watching with one piece of advice or encouragement, what would that be?
I'm not sure that there's one piece of advice or encouragement for people who want to go through a career like this. There's a lot of important factors, but I'd say the most important one at this moment is to volunteer and to say yes to things. So like, say yes to an internship, or say yes when someone offers you an interview for a job. But absolutely, once you're in even one of those jobs, when you volunteer to take on other projects that are not necessarily within your scope, and you volunteer to do them and you do them well, that reflects much more positively on you than trying to hold out for your perfect job. There are plenty of people I've known who've held out for perfect jobs on Capitol Hill and have eventually left because they can't get exactly what they want. And then there's plenty of people I know who have been around for a very long time, much longer than I have, who have gotten what they want because they've said yes and they've volunteered for other assignments, and eventually they get to create their own position. And I think that really, really helps if you're willing to just do what you have to make your office run smoothly and to accomplish the goals that are kind of there for the whole team.
Thanks, Conroy. And Rachel, if you had to leave our viewers today with one piece of advice or encouragement, what would that be?
I would kind of pick up what Katie said and try new skills like coding or photography, learning a new hobby, because you don't necessarily need the perfect resume to get your dream job. It could be all of these little things that you pick up along the way that help you land it.
Well, thank you so much today for all of your advice that you offered our alumni and our students watching. For anybody watching today who'd like some more career resources to look into, you can visit our website or follow us on our social media channels. And we will be with you all again soon. Go Cowboys!